And you don't even know how exciting this week is, because I nerd out on what we're going to be talking about today, and now I have somebody that's going to nerd out with us, and we're going to get so much information. So excuse me if I am jumping around really quick on this episode, because I'm very excited about this, because I think that what we're going to be talking about tonight is the root of all of the problems. And so that's why I'm excited about it, because I'm thinking if we can just address this one thing and really get it right, then we kind of have the foundation for health. And so I'm excited. But welcome to this week's Your Pet's Life Coach. I'm Carrie Hyde. I'm your host. And tonight we're going to be talking to somebody who is going to help us dive really deep. So we're going to get deep into dental issues and the causes and how we can prevent it. And so I want to welcome to the show. I'm so sorry. I lost my my phone is ringing. My phone is ringing. Hold on one moment. It messes me up all the time. So, but we're going to be talking with Emily Stein. She's Dr. Emily Stein, but she likes to go by M. But I want you to know that this isn't just somebody who kind of thinks she knows what she's talking about. We're talking about a PhD in microbiology. She's brilliant, passionate about what she does, and she created a company called Teef, T-E-E-F. For those of you who listen to me a lot, you know, I started using their product for a while before I would recommend it to you. And then I found the results were amazing. And so, of course, I wanted to bring Dr. Stein on. Dr. Stein, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. I thought I had turned my phone off and then it got me all messed up. So, but it's so amazing to talk to somebody who has your background, because it is really hard for me as somebody who, and I hate to say just a groomer, but that is how I was a vet tech for a while. People know that. And then I went into what I do now. But it's hard for people to listen sometimes when someone like me, without the degrees and the background that you have, to understand. So it's so great to have somebody like yourself, so knowledgeable, get into the pet world and help the pet world. I know you do both, but just helping our animals and seeing those results there is just amazing. So I'm just so blessed that you came on and you're willing to dive deep into this so people can understand. We talk a lot in the raw community about the gut microbiome. But we rarely talk about the mouth biome and the connection. And so it is so important. So thank you so much for being here. It's going to be amazing.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. And thank you. Honestly, I mean, I take my dog to the vet probably twice a year. But I mean, as a dog owner, we take our pets to groomers more often than vets. So You're honestly in the front line.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I actually tell my clients that all the time. I'm hoping to catch something because I see your dog more often. Hopefully. It's nowadays it seems like I don't see the dogs more often. It seems like they're going to the vet so often, which is one of the reasons why I started looking into why is it that my dogs go to the vet once a year and the rest of these vets their dogs are going every month or cats are going every month. It's pretty intense. But so tell us a little bit about, I mean, and this is going to sound kind of a little weird, but how do you grow up to be a microbiologist? I know little girls aren't sitting around and going, yeah, I can't wait to jump into bugs.
I know. So
how did that happen?
I did not grow up as a germaphobe, but I evolved into a germaphobe. Let me just state that. That's the right question to ask. So I literally fell in love with being in a laboratory and as a undergrad at a major Big Ten university, you know, your average female goes out to the clubs and tries to meet, you know, boys and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, and I was most comfortable in a BSL-3 in a bunny suit with a respirator working on tuberculosis. That's just because I was terrified and I had to understand how things that I can't see with my naked eye could kill me. I mean, we've been living through the pandemic, so we're fundamentally understanding this now. So it's like, a lot of people, you know, the general public understands the potential power and economic power and livelihood and vitality that something you can't even see with your naked eye can basically succeed at making your life or succeed at breaking your life. And so that fascination and fear actually drove me into microbiology. I'll be honest.
It's so amazing. And it's weird too, because I've been looking into this. I feel like if I had the right direction, that might have been where I would have gone, is microbiology, because I'm so interested in it now. How the skin, and I just did a podcast with Dr. Morgan on the skin's microbiome, something that I've been really, which is how I found you, because I was looking for something that both, you know, would inhibit the mouth, and because the dogs chew on themselves constantly. Right. And so I'm like, all they're doing is just putting it all, it's just all wrapped into. So it's very, very obsessed with it. But it's just, it's really great to see. I know this is going to sound, I'm going to probably get beat up for this, but it's nice to see women seeking out these kind of careers.
Even though I hope you don't get beat up for that, but you're right. More women are going into the sciences and medicines, and veterinary medicine too. Let's be honest, you know?
Yeah. I know it's crazy to think, but I mean, I'm probably much older than you. It was never even talked about for us to go into that kind of stuff. You would just think you were just weird if you did that. I still think I'm weird. I am weird. I'm a little weird. I like cleaning dogs' ears. To me, I love it.
I actually cleaned my dog's ears today, so I am a fellow weirdo.
I get so excited. I get to clean like 50 dogs' ears a day.
Oh, well, you beat me.
Okay. And I love it. I love it. There's nothing better. I was teaching a new girl today, and I just use my finger. Like, I'll get some coconut oil in there and I just kind of mush it around. And she is looking at me like, no, I can't. That's so gross.
Like, well, let's just say that our oral care products have taken us into women's health vaginal microflora.
No,
so guess what I did today? I looked at least 12 vaginal floral outgrowths of swabs. So, you know,
it's so awesome though. I know, it's just interesting. Before COVID hit, you know, I hate to, I in no way am happy that we all went through COVID, but I have to say it has been a lot easier for me to explain these things since COVID. Like there's this aha moment that people are having about things that we breathe and eat, and how things can transmit without you even knowing that someone has an illness. It can transmit into the air, and what it can do. So it has been a little helpful in that. Have you?
I worked on tuberculosis, which actually has infected well beyond COVID. So a third of human beings have test positive for TB, and you can be in an elevator, or you can be in a bus or a plane, and someone coughs and they respirate 1 to 3 bacilli of bacteria, and you inhale it and you get colonized, and they live in your lungs for about 20 to 30 years before they start to really kill you. And they modify their environment and manipulate their host, and they do all these scary things. And that's where I come from, right? So I'm thinking about the mouth is the largest gateway, because we eat through it, we drink through it, we breathe through it. Most of us are mouth breathers. I'm sorry, especially short-nosed dogs are mouth breathers. Like my dog unfortunately likes rabbit poop in the winters, and but it is what it is. You know, you catch them midstream and you can't like stop that quickly enough. And some dogs get all sorts of stuff because they like other dogs, excrements. And so it's just this reality that we have to live in. And this is the biggest portal entry into the body. And so it's all about maintaining natural flora and inhibiting the growth of abnormal flora and microbes that cause dental disease and beyond.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is that's why I was saying at the beginning of the show, what we're going to be talking about is the root. Like, I just feel like, oh my gosh, this is we can talk about the gut, and I'm not discrediting the gut because they're connected, but that's how the gut gets bad.
100%. And all of the clinical studies have shown there's this term I'm going to throw out. It's a science term called dysbiosis. It means too many harmful, not enough beneficial, imbalance, blah, blah, blah. But basically it causes immune dysregulation, barrier function dysregulation, which is the gut, which is also the gum tissue. We're taught by our dental hygienist that bleeding gums when we brush our teeth or floss is a really bad sign of disease, right? That is very fundamentally true. There's also resorption and recession of the gum tissue, which is also really bad, but that's much more silent. And then that transcends through the gut. And so all the clinical data are showing that if you have leaky gums, you're going to get leaky gut. And if you already have leaky gut, you're going to get leaky gums because that tube is connected.
Yeah. It's so interesting. So how does it happen? So you're like, I have this vision, like you're in the lab, you're all labbed up, and then you're just like, you know how they always say, like, it was an accident, like the petri dish fell over and it exploded, and that's why we have airplanes.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh
my gosh, that's a multifactorial. So we're inbreeding our animals. Right. We are over treating our animals with antibiotics and antiseptics. We are over treating ourselves with antibiotics and antiseptics, and we're living in the same household. So we share the microbiota of the oral cavity in the household. And it is, you can actually share gum disease causing pathogens if you're a human, with your children and with your animals. And if your animals are inhabited by them and you're naive, quote unquote, to them, they can also share them and infect you. So it is a cohabitation event to be aware of. Diet. Your animals might be raw fed, but you're likely eating a lot of carbohydrates yourself. So just be aware that if you're eating carbohydrates, you're still probably likely carrying a lot of the microbes that cause gum disease. And you may have gum disease, or your spouse may have gum disease, and you still might be transmitting it to your susceptible pets. So be very wary of that. And then there's also stress. And we're all living in this society, which is pretty stressful, honestly, to survive. And my dog is a rescue. He's highly anxious, so he's highly stressed, and I do everything I can to chill him out. But it is what it is. And I'm also stressful day by day, depending upon cost benefit, and right. Profit and loss statements and investor needs. And, it's insane, right? So he feeds off of my stress, and so you can't, it's very difficult to stop that, but the microbes can pick up on that and they'll take advantage of that because they are always looking for a leg up to survive in their ecosystem. And if we get some of the harmful microbes, what we found, even at less than 1% of gum disease causing microbes in the mouth of an organism, meaning human or dog or cat, they can wind up manipulating their surroundings to their advantage and take over that population and overcome it and start to manipulate that environment for their own benefit, which means they're going to start bleeding your gums because they need heme, Porphyromonas, which is the biggest gum disease causing microbial species with multiple strains and multiple subspecies in dogs, cats, humans, horses. Loves carbohydrate eating bacteria waste products. So wherever a dog or cat or human, whenever we're eating any tiny bit of carbohydrate, they're going to get fed, right? And if they get a leg up at all, they have the full capacity in their arsenal to overpower beneficial microbes and keep them down while they grow up. And so it's a constant battle that goes on in the mouth, which is a battleground. It's the number one battleground for all health. If you have a mouth and you're a mammal, you're susceptible to dental disease.
Yeah. And oh my gosh, it's so interesting when you talk about how we can share it with the family, whether that's your dog or your family, because we see this a lot. I know Dr. Barry Sands is working on this. She's putting together, you can be part of it if you bring your animal and yourself into this study that she's doing about disease that you and your animal share. So you have the same disease, you end up with whatever it is, unfortunately, but like colon cancer. Now your dog has colon cancer, or your dog has, Cushing's, and you have Cushing's. And so it's very interesting when you mention that, yeah, you actually can share. And you think about it, especially one of my cats who seems to want to sleep right here all the time. Obviously we're breathing, the same air and getting all of that kind of stuff. And we don't even think about that, that we share. I know that we share, there's been lots of studies about like the skin bacteria from people who live with the pets they have a whole different skin microbiome than people who live without pets.
Yeah.
So,
and it's asthma rates, your lung microbiome is different too.
Yeah. Isn't that great? I love this stuff because it's just so interesting. And it's, I don't know where it's been all my life. I'm like, why didn't we know that? Why don't?
It's not mainstream yet in news cycles on Today's Show or any of the major, and that's sad, but it's also going to scare people. And so I realize, what I work on is very scary. It can kill you over time, and you might not, like dogs can lose a third of their lifespan if they don't have good, proper dental health. And it is not a toothbrushing thing. That's not the fight. All the metadata in humans, over 5,000 clinical studies, not 5,000 people, 5,000 clinical studies show that brushing your teeth has nothing to do with outcome for gum disease.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, I mean, I usually have like a little conversation with people before they come on the show. And you said that to me the other day when we were on the phone, and I was dumbfounded because my little brother, when we were little, he refused to brush his teeth. And we were all like, his teeth are going to rot out of his mouth and because we were kids and I was mean and whatever. And I think everybody is with their siblings, hopefully. Otherwise, I'm just a jerk on by myself. But the interesting thing, now that I look back on it, and I have for many years, when we would go to the dentist, I always had like a cavity or needed a root canal, and I was the brusher. I was like, oh my God, 3 times a day, I got to do this, all that. My brother never had cavities.
Yep. Welcome
Never.
to being
his
female.
Teeth were practically green when he was little. Like he just wouldn't. He was a boy and he didn't want to do it. My mom had to force him. But we would go to the dentist and he would always get a clean bill of health. What the hell is that? That's not fair.
It's the neuroendocrine system and being female. I know it's not fair, but that's where healthcare costs are way sky high compared to males. But I've been working in, long story short, I first got into dental not because I was drawn into it for anything other than my grandmother had a stroke because she had a tooth extraction. And she had a rheumatoid arthritis, which predisposes people to periodontal disease, aka gum disease, or vice versa. So now they've shown that.
Could it be it can be the other?
So we don't know which one came first. But she had her tooth pulled and then stroke the next day, which she was independently living in assisted living. And then boom, she was in hospice care. Luckily she survived, and then nursing home, and her quality of life completely changed. She stopped smiling. She was embarrassed, and so I basically biohacked my grandmother so she wouldn't have any more dental problems, because I knew it was preventative because of my background in microbiology. And then my postdoc was in rheumatology, so I understand what happens in chronic inflammatory disease states that are progressive, which aka periodontal disease, aka gum disease, has a lot of hallmarks in dog and cat immune response. So the host immune response against their own microbial flora in the mouth is very similar to autoimmune profiles. So you see a lot of innate activation. You see a lot of antibodies developed against the oral microflora. You see antibodies directed against the own soft tissue in the gingiva, which is why we think that they might erode over time, is really because it's an exacerbation by the host immune system, in part, in addition, due to the dental pathogens. So you got dental pathogens causing some problems, recruiting inflammatory cells, modifying the host tissue, making a good home for themselves, even though it's really bad for our health. but they need to make a home for themselves, and they need in perio. A lot of the perio-pathogens need heme, so they cause wounds intentionally to access the red blood cells so they can get heme to survive. It's just their nutrient that they are essentially requiring. And they're being fed by carbohydrate fermentation products, by the Peptostreptococcus strep and all that in the mouths of cats and dogs and humans. And yes, even on a raw diet, dogs and cats are getting a little bit of carbohydrate. So it's not a carbo-free environment. Just be aware of that. My dog is raw fed too. And so, we add to it his teeth on a daily basis, just to, as an added protection, just because there's this false assumption that being raw fed, you're protected from dental problems, but that's not true. We're seeing even puppies raw fed having dental problems because you inherit the maternal microbiome. And so I inherited my mom's microbiome. My dog Cashew inherited his mom's microbiome. The only exception is with certain kind, like anybody that's C-section derived inherits the environment that they're born into. That's the microbiome they get, because they don't get colonized by the natural vaginal microbiome of their mom. So be aware of that.
Well, and that's sad, because if you and I am very aware of that as a bulldog. My bulldog passed away, but most of them are born in C-section in a very sterile environment, right?
Not really sterile. No. It's really resistant to a lot of antiseptics, antibiotics, because that's what sterility evolves.
Oh yeah. But it's not. We're not going to have the vaginal bacteria. But even then, I wonder though, because generation after generation after generation, it's just would it really matter whether that bulldog gave the birth through the birthing canal? I don't know, because there's like no bacteria left, it feels like.
Well, what we know from, I'm going to really geek out, what we know from like sterile mice in sterile environments where they're absolutely like void of microbiota in their GI tract. You feed them Porphyromonas species, which cause gum disease in dogs, cats, and humans. It goes right into the system, burrows through the blood vessels, gets into the brain, goes in through the placenta, coats the fetus, and that's why I think why preterm birth in pregnant females with periodontal or gum disease is so prevalent, because that little fetus needs to hit the eject button because it's a little bit too inflamed already, which is why it gives preterm birth or spontaneous, unfortunate abortions, is because it just can't handle that amount of inflammation, that amount of attack by the harmful microbes that live in the mouth. And we know, and this is one of the reasons my grandmother had her tooth pulled, microbes went in. I rescued 4 years later, I rescued Tinsley. She was a rescued Cocker Spaniel, 10 years old, from a shelter. And they said she needed dental, and boy, she, within 36 hours, we were in the emergency department. She had 21 teeth extracted. Her dental infection had spread to a bloodstream infection, so we had to pump her through with awful antibiotics to save her life. $6,000 on my credit card. Luckily, I had that much credit left on my credit card.
No, I've been there before, where I'm like, I think it'll go through.
I hope it goes. No whammies.
Right.
But she survived. But my goodness, that was yet another example of why this is an unmet need in people and in pets.
Yeah.
And we fundamentally just didn't understand the question to answer. And everybody wanted to kill. But microbes design around kill so quickly. I mean, we're hearing antimicrobial resistance all over the news. If you use antiseptics in your toothpaste and your whatever dental chews, the microbes design around that stuff really quickly. So we've taken a very organic approach to this, and just is like, okay, here's a nutrient carrot, here's a nutrient stick. You guys have to behave. We're kind of beating them down by selective nutritional pressure into evolutionary pressure, basically, because that's the history of microbes. Is like, okay, they only understand nutrients. That's
Yeah.
the language they speak.
So just create an environment they don't really want to be in, right?
Or the enrich for the microbes that do want to be in that environment.
Yeah.
So because dogs and cats are foundationally protein eating beings, right? So muscle tissue and things like that. We are putting the oral microbiota on a keto diet, forcing them to only utilize the proteins in their food sources, in their treats, in their chews, in whatever they're given throughout the day, and to reinforce them to behave, to grow the good that ancestrally should be in their mouths, and B, we're seeing really good benefits in what the good microbes are secreting. And that maps right onto what we see in human data. Healthy people with healthy dental health have microbes that are good at regulating the immune system and are good at creating healthy barrier function in the epithelial tissue so they don't have bleeding gums. Yeah, they might have a little plaque. They might have a tiny bit of tartar, but they don't have gum disease.
Yeah. Yeah, I see like the gum disease. I think that's what people don't realize is like the little bit of tartar or the little bit of plaque. But then when I lift up and you just see these gums that are
Yeah.
just so inflamed and their teeth are falling out and this kind of stuff. And then we see so much stuff that I don't know what studies you've looked at, but like collapsing trachea, that is so prevalent right now. And I can't tell you how many times I have people bring me animals with a collapsing trachea and I just look in their mouth and you can see the gum disease. I mean, it's no wonder the trachea is just collapsing. Have you done any studies or know of any studies where they've been able to fix the mouth biome and actually watched the diseases kind of get better? Have we seen that yet? Any particular
On our human product, we got rid of gingivitis in older adults.
Yeah.
We get rid of skin and soft tissue infection causing and hotspot causing bacteria in mouths of dogs. And they don't get their hotspots resolve quickly. But we have to treat their mouth and the skin lesions at the same time. Definitely the mouth. If you treat the skin lesions, they go away even faster. But you have to treat that mouth. If you don't treat the mouth, you're not going to treat the problem. That's the root cause. We're finding in homes we have a human business and an animal business, right? So we see a lot of we test homes and we test their water supply and their food supply and all these things and trying to identify where it's coming from, where these microbes are coming from, right? And a lot of it's in our water, I'll be honest. And so you're seeing immunocompromised pet parents getting MRSA, and the MRSA is coming from their dog's mouth, right? And so we have to treat the dog and the human at the same time to get rid of the whole problem.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it just bounces back and forth.
Have you ever, like, I know that you had to get your dog's teeth cleaned.
Yeah.
Has there been, do you think, I have somebody, Lori's asking, Lori, I don't think that we got, Lori Law, I don't think we got the whole question, or at least I only think I see part of it. But I think basically what she's getting at is she's got to take her dog in to have the teeth cleaned. But have you been able to get just by using teeth? Could you use it more often? Could you spray it in there? Is there a way, if you had an animal, I just had this happen. I had an animal that I had to make the decision. It was a rescue. I was fostering, and I had to make that decision to go in and have those teeth pulled. There was so much rot and stuff in there.
Yeah.
But if there wasn't bone loss, if there wasn't, if it wasn't quite to that level, do you think it's possible to get the mouth cleaned up without doing dental?
100%. So X-rays only detect late stage dental disease, which means that if there's bone loss, that equals late stage. There's this whole silent soft tissue. It is a soft tissue disease. So just like osteoarthritis or rheumatoid arthritis in humans, periodontal disease is a soft tissue disease that winds up occurring years before that initial erosion of bone, either alveolar bone in your jaw, in the dog's jaw or cat's jaw, or erosion right around that socket where that tooth fits. Because the soft tissue, which is the ligament, also known as the periodontal ligament, which holds, it's the binding agent, like almost the cement, the biological cement that holds the tooth to the joint, that jaw socket. So when that gets attacked by both the microbes and the immune system in a dog, a cat, or a human, that poor ligament has no self-defense. It's like just a nice shiny coat on a car, right? And once that shiny coat is gone, you start getting rust. I'm just trying to make an analogy. It's very different biologically, but in this case, you're having both the pathogenic microbes that are being fed even by the smallest amount of carbohydrate. They can survive. And like I mentioned, even less than 1% of Porphyromonas or some of the other red complex species, Treponema or Tannerella or Catanella for cats in particular, or humans. We're not even going to talk about the fungus because that's a whole other story. It is very deleterious, very pro-inflammatory, and recruits those immune cells and really pisses them off. And really those immune cells start to just attack, right? Because they're trying to kill all things that are there. And the bystander is that sad periodontal ligament, which is that nice shiny coat that protects your car paint from rust, aka the tooth connectivity. And so once that is attacked and gone, that tooth falls out. And in correlation, what we know now from epidemiologic studies is that for every tooth lost in a dog and a human, you actually lose lifespan. So be thoughtful about that. Wow. It's not just about tooth extractions, which also can cause problems, like AKA my grandmother and her stroke.
Right.
Because microbes go in. Every time you see a red blood cell coming out, there is a huge hole that tiny little beings called microbes went inside, and they go into the bloodstream, and then they set up shop in your brain, which is why dogs and humans get dementia if they have periodontal disease. That's a well-established story now. Or joint disease or cardiovascular problems, or even cancers now, because the mouth is the gateway, and these microbes, how harmful they are in your mouth, you really want to correct and course correct. And that's why we're really trying to enrich for beneficial microbes in the mouths of dogs, cats, humans, horses, you name it, because we know the outcomes for overall health are going to be much better.
Yeah. It's the dog that I just had the situation with, who had the worst dental I have probably ever, second worst dental mouth I've ever seen, also had dementia. So it's very, very interesting because I watch, just because I've been working with animals now for over 40 years, but the amount of dental problems that we see versus what we used to see, and dementia, I could absolutely see the connection. Yeah. I mean, every time I see a dog with dementia, he's got dental problems. Every time. Yeah. I've never seen a dog with dementia that didn't have dental problems.
Yeah. And I've talked to a lot of vets, and they're like, because the story between autoimmune diseases and periodontal disease in humans is so strong. It's one of the strongest connections identified of correlative co-occurrences.
Yeah.
Of really chronic inflammatory disease states that lead to really bad outcomes. And it's like, on average, I think what's reported or identified is only about 1% of dogs are diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And I'm just like, I bet that's fundamentally underdiagnosed in dogs, because there's not the right kind of diagnostics wrapped around dog diagnostics as there is around human, right?
Yeah, right.
And that's one of my big pushes, is I'm trying to help build in for teeth in particular, because everybody thinks that plaque tartar or bad breath for dogs.
That's all they think about.
Bad breath can come from lungs, it can come from lower gut, it can come from liver, come from kind of food, not just originating in the mouth. Plaque and tartar, a dog can have zero plaque and tartar and still have gum disease. Same as humans.
So
And
important.
same as humans for bad breath too. Sinuses is actually one of the biggest causes of bad breath in humans. And because the postnasal drip, which has nothing to do with oral health. And so it's really about educating folks on what healthy gingiva or healthy gum tissue looks like, right? What
Yeah.
is it? Puffy? Is it orange and pissed off, or is it like nice and like calm, nice pink? It should get more red as the dog exercises, because that means increased blood flow. If it doesn't, if it's white still, you got a major circulatory problem in the gum tissue.
Yeah.
You see that with dementia patients because they lose a lot of circulation and innervation in their gum tissue. They can have deep root caries and have like total infestation of a gum infection and not even feel it, because there's a misconception about dementia that it's just a central nervous system disease, but it's a whole nervous system disease. So the nerves also start to die in the gum tissue, which means the gum tissue is not as healthy. And, long story short, and we see that in dogs too.
No, it's so fascinating. It really kind of makes you think. I love that you even said you can have gum disease and not have any plaque or tartar on your teeth.
Total truth. Vets know this too.
No, it never even really occurred to me. And I really pay close attention to dental for dogs because I've seen it and been through it. Let's go back to the water. So just really quick, for those of you who are listening, I see your questions. We're going to get to them. I'm just going to kind of take us there a little roundabout way. But first, for those of you who don't know, TEEF is something that Dr. Stein created, and it goes into your dog's water. So let's talk a little bit about the water, because you had mentioned that the water in people's homes when you go in is just awful. Could your water be so bad that you put the TEEF in it and the water could kind of make the TEEF not work? Or like, how would you know if it's working?
Ooh, yeah. Well, we all have bacteria in our drinking water. If it comes out of the tap, you're bathing in it. I mean, you see that pink stuff at your shower head. Those are Pseudomonas species. People get amoeba infections when they snort their shower water or accidentally breathe in. Anyways, long story short, the municipal cleanings, I can't even talk about them. I'm a germaphobe. Everybody does the best they can in municipalities, right? And there are certain standards that are met all the time. But microbes learn how to become resistant to antiseptics, right? And some of the products on the market, both in the human and in the animal dental space, are based on municipal cleaning additives, antiseptics to get rid of coliforms in our drinking water, but it doesn't get rid of other microbes in our drink, like MRSA or like amoeba or like Pseudomonas, right? Which are naturally resistant to those things. So just be aware of that.
So would it be a good idea to have your water tested?
You can test your water. Yes, sure. Know what you're dealing with. Know what you're drinking. Know what your dog's drinking. Know what you're bathing in. I'm all about more information is better. I also don't want to cause people to be as germophobic as me. But just know we're walking in a world every single day with microbes.
Wow. I mean, and I try not to go down that rabbit hole, because I sometimes feel like, oh my gosh, if I keep going, I'm going to end up being OCD. And
don't do that, because this is where I learned in rheumatology. If you're too clean and too sterile, you're going to get an autoimmune disease because you're too clean. We evolved as humanoids, human beings, coated with stuff that comes from the earth, right? And we've slowly become gotten farther and farther away from soil and inoculating us, right? And then we're coating ourselves with antimicrobial soaps, and we're using toothpaste with antiseptics all over the place, and we're, all sorts of stuff. I don't want to go into it. Eating a lot of stuff that has preservatives in it, which screw up our native commensal microbiota, which are the beneficial guys that you really want to have growing in you and on you to keep you healthy. And like every single dog food on the market that is packaged and sold, if not frozen or freeze dried. Like my dog gets raw freeze dried, doesn't have any preservatives in it for a reason. Is
Right.
because it screws up those beneficials. But too many human beings are eating processed foods, and too many dogs these days are eating processed food. Cat food I can't even go into because it's so processed. It makes me
So sad.
fundamentally ill.
Yeah.
And they've completely their gut microbiota and oral microbiota is completely jacked because of it.
Yeah. And you think about how much a cat spends cleaning themselves,
Yeah.
licking, cleaning like that. They're, oh my gosh, yeah. And our poor kitties, they get so, I think in some ways cats get more ignored than dogs do because,
Oh yeah.
I know back from when I was a vet tech, we didn't hardly ever see, I mean, we saw cats, but we saw cats at the end of their life when they needed to be put down, when they had
Kidney
kids
disease
together. Yeah,
probably.
kidney disease, always kidney disease.
I
When they,
know.
always,
Yeah.
always. Dogs, we saw a lot more often. People spend a lot more time. Uh,
Well,
I don't know.
cats don't. Sadly, cats don't. Cats hide when they're hurting, right? And they don't show you when they're really. And when they can't chew anymore, you don't really notice. You just think that they're not eating as much, or for
Right.
whatever reason. And and if they're over grooming themselves, you think, oh, they're just trying to stay extra clean because they're getting older. My cat of 19 years recently passed away, CKD. So we've been focusing on cat, and we're launching a cat product next month. But yeah, what we found in all of our research is that cats have an extraordinary amount of fungus in their mouths because it is such a warm, moist place. It's not like slobbery like dogs,
Right.
like bigger dogs. It's more like they're more like a small dog. Um,
No.
and so it's a very moist, humid environment, not super wet. And it's just a great incubator for micro or for certain kinds of microbes, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, and fungus sends out these very highly potent neuroactive molecules called neuropeptides and neurotransmitter like molecules to manipulate the host neuronal system. And so it's very harmful potentially for the cat, but also for pregnant women and other species, not just
Yeah, that's been taught. I mean, I've known about that a lot for with the pregnant women, but lately it's been popping back up. I've been seeing it a lot in media. It kind
yeah,
of died down for a while. We didn't hear about it, and now it's kind of back up again.
yeah.
Which
And those
we
microbes don't stay in the mouth, right? They go to the brain, they go to the kidney, which is why humans with periodontal disease wind up having a higher risk of chronic kidney disease, and same as cats. Like there's these connections. It's not an aberrant thing, right? These are like epidemiologically observed metadata. They're
right.
not, they're real trends, and we need to really dig deep to figure out why. And that's because what we're finding, long story short, is the microbes inhabiting the mouth, if they're harmful, they don't just stay in the mouth, right? And that's one of the biggest pushes I'm trying to get out there in the marketplace, both in the veterinary world and the dental world and in medicine, is that if you really care about positive outcomes, you need to care about positive dental health.
Sure. So let's talk a little bit. I know we'll talk a little bit about die off, but in particular, we'll talk about Lori's question. She says she's been adding teeth to Mango's, her dog's water since the end of February. He still has bad breath.
Yep.
Can you tell her a little bit about why that might be happening?
Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, bad breath can originate from the lower gut, from the liver, from the lungs, from the sinuses, and from the mouth. So it depends on the breed. And if periodontal disease, if it is coming from the mouth, it's probably due to the fact that the periodontal disease in one or several teeth are so advanced that those teeth actually have infested root infections well below the tooth, where the root exists. It's a protected ecosystem for the microbes, and they just fester and they recruit neutrophils, which are an immune cell. And have you ever like popped a zit and it stinks? That's the example I can give you.
Yeah.
And your average dose of teeth daily is not going to overcome that hurdle. It's also not built to overcome the hurdle of postnasal drip or lower gut um, issues. You can definitely upscale the dose to get your lower gut better. We've got those studies underway, and everything looks really good. So you can actually overcome lower gut by improving the oral care. But postnasal drip, give us some time. I actually have some vets, I think, that are interested in tackling sinus with us, because we know that that's one of the big contra indicators or complications for oral health, or bad odors coming out of the mouth. But also lung is a hard thing, because lungs are one of the ways your dog excretes. It's one of the major excreting organs, right? So after you've had onions or garlic, you know how you have garlic breath or onion breath, right? That lung tissue is just excreting those aromatic molecules that don't originate from the mouth, but you're breathing them out of the mouth. So it's hard to figure out where it's coming from. But we're happy to work with folks on dosing appropriately and figuring out where those odors are emanating from, so we can try and help, because no one wants a dog or a cat with bad breath, or a partner.
Or a partner, or a cat. Yeah, definitely a cat, because they get up in my face when they're sleeping. But yeah, so keep going though, right? But you're thinking maybe she might be able to
Yeah, keep going. I mean, it's actually, the quality of breath, yes, it's unpleasant, but it's actually a less important thing is who's living in their mouths. You know what I mean? And that's silent, but we're actually building a diagnostic to help all of us understand that better. And so if anybody listening wants to be a part of our research, we would be more than happy. It's at no cost to anybody. It just might require a swab or two every so often to understand, and then some testing prototypes that we're building.
I might be interested. I want to do it. We'll talk about it. I definitely want to get one of my dogs into it, or I don't know, my cats. I have young cats. I have 4 young cats because I'm crazy, stupid. But and a bunch of kittens that I'm bottle feeding. I have 3 bottle.
Oh no, that's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. I don't know what I was thinking, but I do it. I do it every year, and I say every year because kitten season. There's a kitten season.
Yeah,
and
there
so,
is.
Yeah. So, this is already 2
but
season.
Good for you, because what we know about development, humans and all mammals, is that we were raised on milk. We need the lactobacillus, the lactococcus, like all of those species inhabiting our GI tract for better outcomes. And without that, you're missing, like colostrum. We all know, my dog was ripped away from his mama too early, so he barely survived. And then luckily, the foster mom saved him by putting him on, this artificial stuff from the vet, but that saved his life. But he was weaned too early, or he was cut off too early, and so he barely survived, and that's because he couldn't handle that transition. Because what we know from the microbiota in the whole gut is that there's this massive transition and stages throughout your lifespan, right? From neonatal to toddler, and I'm talking human and animal at this time. Granted, the time lengths are very shortened for animals, but it's the same kind of phases when you lose your deciduous teeth and you get your permanents in, right? And all these transitions in the oral microbiota occur with those phases. And that's, so if you get a dog with a lot of ear infections and eye infections when they're teething, that's why those microbes are going up into their face and their bones. And women that get injections into their face and fillers and stuff wind up getting and can get some infections. And we find out that they originated from a tooth that had a 4 instead of a 3, or, in the gum recession, and that's how we know that it's so connected, right?
Wow. It's so crazy to when you went that science is starting to figure it out is what is so exciting about it. Because I just think, gosh, there's going to have to be a breaking point where, because right now we just see all the disease, so much
Yeah.
disease, right? I mean, in our animals and ourselves, and young children dying from cancers and all this. So at some point, there's going to be a breaking point, and I feel like science is getting there. Like we're getting to the root of the cause, and that's what's so exciting about the new research. And even
Yeah.
anxiety, we start seeing all these studies coming out about human anxiety, which I know anxiety has always existed, but not like this. When I was a kid, I never even heard of the word anxiety or
And
panic.
Carrie, anxiety equals inflammation. Just think about that.
Right. That's the thing. Like the studies are starting to talk about, the gut and where it stems from and why it's there. And it makes sense when we see it in animals that each generation is passing down not the right microbes.
Mhm.
And so now we're seeing all these
Yeah.
diseases that didn't exist. And so this
And
is so
all
interesting.
breeders are so focused on lineage, right? But they
Mhm.
never pay attention to the microbiota. And the microbiome is actually, there's more microbial cells in a dog than there are dog cells,
Wow.
right? And dog genetics is like only a fraction of the total genetics of that dog. It's actually
Yeah.
more microbial than it is dog, same as humans. And so they're all built on pedigree, but it's all like, what are you feeding? What did you feed the great grandfather and the great
Yep.
grandmother, right?
Yep.
And that's, you inherit the microbiome just as much as you inherit the heterochromatin, which is all of that negative energy that feeds into how your DNA unwinds and winds up, and which genes get expressed and don't get expressed. And then layer on top of the microbiome, it's like a total cluster.
It is. I have the bottle baby kittens that I
Yep.
always take in. My bottle baby kittens start off on raw, unpasteurized goat's milk. They don't take the stuff from the KMR and the powdered
Yeah.
down
Yeah.
version of anything. And then from there they go straight onto a raw diet. So raw.
That's the best you can do.
Yeah. The problem is like I want people to know when they adopt these kittens how unbelievably cautious I am with their gut
Yeah.
microbiome, but I can't because the animal shelter doesn't want me feeding raw. So
I know there's a lot of politics, and there's okay.
I know it's so.
So with all, I mean, I don't know if I should
I
say
know
this.
it's always scary what we say, what we don't say.
Yeah, because the big boys come down and
I know.
swap you.
I know.
But vets have 8 hours of nutrition in their education. And I took a whole course of microbial nutrition and a whole course of
Yeah.
human nutrition in my curriculum as an undergrad. So and then, on top of that, all the
Yeah.
other metabolism classes I've had to take from microbial perspective and biochem perspective. But I will say that the animal in food industry does not fundamentally yet want to recognize that the microbes will always eat first and secrete waste products that the host animal absorbs.
Wow. I don't know if they ever will.
Let's just say I can't move manually fast enough to measure the acid production from the time I squirt on sugar into a periodontal plaque sample in vitro. Like I pull it from a dog, I put it in a petri dish, squirt some media on it with sugar in it. I can't move fast enough to start to measure the acid production. And we
Wow.
know that acid causes inflammation. So and leaky gums. And everybody thinks about leaky gut first. And yes, that is the longest tract, but the one that's closest to the head and the heart is the mouth.
Wow. Yeah, I know we talked about what else can cause breath. I remember back as a vet tech learning about that sweet smell that comes from a dog's mouth being linked to the kidneys. And
Ketosis.
yeah, and so it's very interesting. I just recently had a client with a very young dog, but the breath, teeth were perfectly clean. There was not a bit of plaque. She feeds a very good species
Yeah.
appropriate diet, but this odor, and she could smell it, and everybody thought she was crazy.
Well, no, there's the maple syrup smell.
Yeah.
That's one type of metabolic disease. Then the ketosis, which is ketones, which can be pungent on some dogs, other dogs. So other dogs have microbes that can modify the ketones and make them sweet smelling. So you actually don't know your dog's in ketosis because there's microbes that modify. I'm telling you, there are more microbes that are these little metabolic engines, aka they are
anything.
yeah, I mean, our mitochondria or dogs' mitochondria are ancestral microbes, right? Those are what's inside their mammalian cells. And then outside of it are a ton of microbes, right? Even in utero, we co-evolved with them. And so that's something that the whole industry needs to think about.
Right. So somebody had written, and I'm sorry, I'm remembering all these questions, so I'm sorry I'm not scanning back, but somebody said this is really depressing. And it is, right? It is.
Yeah, I'm the biggest party foul. Don't get me talking about sexually transmitted diseases because you will be very, very celibate for the rest of your life.
For the rest of your life. Oh my gosh. But the thing is like, that's where we have to get to that, like it's ripping off the Band-Aid and exposing the scab, right? We have to get depressed. We have to get angry. We have to do all of these things because that's when change occurs. And that's what you're doing is we're providing this new thinking.
Yeah. And I will be honest, like a dog can lose a third of their lifespan if they have dental disease.
Yeah.
And we don't have them that long. So I don't know about you guys, but I would hate to bury my dog too early.
Right. No, that's what it is. And that's why I talk a lot about nutrition is because they don't live very long. And so if we are going to be putting flea and tick medication on them and over vaccinating them and doing all of this stuff, and we take a year or 2 or 3, 5 years from them, and in some cases 10, we're seeing dogs die from cancer 7, 8 years old. And lifespans are getting reduced. We just recently watched the golden retriever get reduced from 17 years to 9. So that's their average lifespan is 9 years. So, I start thinking like, how are we accepting this? Are we one day going to be like, well, if you get a dog, they live to be 5, so you better commit. Is that where we're going? Is that acceptable? It shouldn't be. And I think that it stems within the mouth. I think that is our first thing. So let's talk about, somebody else said, okay, great. Now what do we do? Right. So let's go there. Now what do we do? Where are we?
Okay. So keep your dog as far away. Well, okay. So if they're in a life-threatening situation, antibiotics will save their life. If it's bacterial, if it's viral, won't touch. If it's fungal, won't touch. So be very careful about what your dog has. If they have a life-threatening illness, ask for testing, ask for the basics, bacterial, viral, fungal. We're still struggling with this in pediatrics and emergency rooms in human medicine. So
how many animals get on antibiotics for viral
they don't
infection?
need it. And it screws up their gut the whole because then they immediately go.
It's reinforcing it because what happens is, like, I'll use kennel cough as the example. Dogs will go in, the dog's coughing, vet says, oh, it sounds like kennel cough. Here's some antibiotics. And we know for a fact that kennel cough has lots of viral strains. And then they give him the antibiotic and then the viral thing cleared up because it was going to anyway. And then they get reinforced that the antibiotic worked. And that's what keeps happening. So
Same thing with pediatric medicine because physicians want that parent to go away and not to bother them.
No, it's true. It's true. Vets too. Like, okay, so I'm sorry. This is where I'm going to get on a little bit of a tangent. And vets actually sell the antibiotic. So they actually make money off the antibiotic. Whereas like in the human world, they send you to Walgreens. Right.
That's true.
Walgreens gets the money. The doctor doesn't. So it's kind of.
Well, they get money to prescribe it.
Sure. But I'm like, gosh, dang it. We need to get better. So I'm sorry, I got off on a tangent, but definitely just like Dr. Stein said, get that testing. What kind of bacteria are we dealing with? Right.
Yeah. I mean, there are tests available. I'm not going to tell anybody which ones to go after because I have not done my homework on that for veterinary.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't feel comfortable. But there are panels you can get. There's culture-based stuff that's old-fashioned that you can get. Viruses are not going to culture up. So be aware of that. And culture is normally microbial or bacterial, not fungal. So be aware that a lot of problems are actually probably more fungal than we realize. The food quality is the biggest problem, I would say. So what influences the microbiome in pets and humans the most is nutrition. And so that's why we're going after nutrition as the basis, is because that's the root driver, honestly, for selecting who's growing in the mouth, who's growing in the lower gut, who's growing on the skin, and diversifying the diet. And the problem with raw is that it's such a limited diet menu. And in reality, in raw, they need to be, because when you think of ancestral, it's fowl, it's foraging, carcasses, it's dogs love gut contents, so because they need some of that broken down, primarily fermented from microbes, food source, which is like why dogs go after rabbit poop, and why they go after ruminant fecal matter, is because that's their ancestral needs. And a lot of the raw fed community is not taking that into consideration. They just think bones, bones, bones.
Right.
Milk, goat's milk, goat's milk, goat's milk, but diversify. I give my dog yogurt some days. I give him raw eggs some days. I give him food I eat some days. He gets a lot of fish. He gets, prepackaged, lyophilized, or dehydrated raw when I can't do anything, and I'm super busy, like tonight because I was on this call. But anything kind of fermented that goes through microbial breakdown is okay for animals. We've had to steer people away in the raw community from giving their dogs apple cider vinegar, because that really screws up their teeth and really pisses off their gingiva. And just a lot of the certain kinds of belief systems in the raw community don't actually can harm oral health. So I just want to be careful about what to advise and what not to advise. Like small dogs with that are like hybrid dogs, or non-mutts should not be eating bones or chewing on bones, because they tend not to have as strong enamel as mutts. And the bones that they do get, make sure they're not super long bones, like femurs from bison and things like that have like a lot of weight, tonnage of, because those strong bones are stronger than the tooth enamel.
Right.
And you get to see a lot of cavities in dogs because they get chipped teeth and broken teeth, which is actually really not good. But you can give bones, but not all the time, and not the super strong ones. The marrow is really where it's at for dog health. And so you can get bone marrow. You can even scrape it out from long bones and provide that to your dog. And that's awesome.
Yeah. It is hard, because when you talk with the raw community, they can be very pro bone.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I wanted to say pro bono, but today I'm like, that's not the word I want to say, but very pro bone. And I have a small dog and a large dog, and bones, people know me. I'm not a big fan of bones because they do break their teeth, and they can break them. You have to be really careful with, like, what Dr. Stein is saying, which kind of bones you're giving, how often you're giving them. But mostly what I love that you're saying, and I think is the biggest problem when it comes to, I think we speak a lot to people, and especially people who come on this show know about what a species appropriate diet is. Where we're lacking is something you touched on, which is the variety. And so can we talk a little bit more about what, because people get on a species appropriate diet and then they feed the same thing
I know.
over and over and over. And great. It's raw organ meat, and it's all of the stuff that we say.
Yeah.
But why is variety so important, you think, for this microbiome in the mouth?
Okay. So every single organism that you're feeding your dog has a different microbiome. So those animals' microbiomes are helping sculpt your animal's microbiome. And the more variety, we know this from human health, from dog health, from cat health. Cats eat around the digestive tract, right? Because they can't handle all that toxic E. coli. Dogs go right for the GI tract, right? Because they need that. And that's just like, you need to think about that. They need that diversity of microbiota to be healthy. I give my dog, even though I won't eat raw eggs, I give my dog raw eggs once in a while, like you need to do every once in a while kind of mentality. Duck eggs, goose eggs, chicken eggs, various sources of eggs from various parts of the continental US, and Canada is better than US, let's be honest. If you can get stuff from Europe, go there. You know what I mean? But that's the kind of way to think about it, because that ecosystem that animal or that egg was grown in, or fowl or fish or whatever, imparts a microbiota from that environment that is ingested by your animal and becomes influences your pet's microbiome.
Yeah, it's important. I know we talked about doggy daycares and drinking from the same bowls, and I own a doggy daycare, so everybody knows what I do and how I do it, and I'm very particular about how I run it. But there's good and bad, right? If your dog is drinking from a bowl of like, say, your dog, right, who has like this great, he could be passing it. But how do we? So when you get your dog from boarding, you up the amount, right?
I double the dose. Yeah, because he comes. So like if I'm gone on business trip for like a week, which I'm getting ready to do for a European pet conference in Berlin, I'm going to put him in boarding. He's going to be stressed out because he's such, attached. He's such an attached kind of a dog. So he's going to be highly anxious, and then he's drinking out of everybody else's water, right? And he's going from super teeth to zero teeth. He's going to accumulate everybody else's microbes too, because there is a sloughing when you go on and off stuff, which is why you want to keep hitting that microbiome in different ways all the time to create more of a robust, with stable ecosystem that normally gets a bunch of different influxes in the mouth and in the gut. The mouth is you want it to be fairly stable. The gut, you can transition a couple times. Vaginal needs to be very stable. Blah, blah, blah. I don't want to go into that. But what I can tell you is that when he comes back, his breath smells again. He's got a little bit of plaque, and so I just give him 2 scoops for several days, and I give him some fermented stuff like yogurt. I give him my cottage cheese with probiotics. I give him, chicken breast and egg and you name it, and his raw stuff. And we kind of work him back into that more healthful microbiome, because the other dogs are being fed non-raw, right? And cheaper diets, and they have a lot of fungus in their mouths. I can tell you they have a lot of gum disease pathogens, because I've done those studies every time I drop them off and pick them up. So I know what that environment has.
I'm going back and forth, because I've been wanting to just put it in the water at work. But I'm like, gosh, if a dog had a reaction to it, would I be able to communicate that with the client? Like if I'm just putting it in every day, it's really hard to communicate with people. Sometimes they don't want to listen, or they're not going to tell me. And so I've been like, shouldn't I? I don't know. I might try to get a hold of everybody. I'm thinking about just doing it for the overnight dogs. So it's in that water, because I'm free run completely. So at least I would be able, that's more of a controlled kind of situation. So, because I am cautious of that and trying to figure out how to keep the animals that come to us healthy.
Yeah. And our approach is putting the microbes on a diet, right? And so that does have a noticeable effect on older dogs, because older dogs tend to have worse microbiomes. And it's actually really funny. It's not just us that have seen this. Other labs from all over the globe working on microbiome have noticed that if you start to change the microbes or change their diet plan, they react and they cause their host to either be really upset about it, have food aggression issues, urinate more frequently because they're sloughing, have transient like loose stool for like a day or two. But the most noticeable is that they tend to overeat.
Really?
Or become aggressive about eating is because, or hangry in the human world, is because those microbes have not been fed the way they want to be fed. And so they're pinging their host's immune system and the nervous system to change that host behavior so they can get fed. And this is very well established. Like 60% of the human serotonin is actually made by the nervous system in the GI tract that gets activated by the gut microbiota when it gets hungry. Then it stimulates our gut's nervous system to send signals to our brain to tell our stomach, grumble, 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 we're hungry.
Get that Reese's
they're hungry. Yeah. And so that's happening in dogs.
Aww.
But they can get really aggressive around food when you're in that initial transitory period where you're really starving out the harmful microbes that are really controlling and over controlling their host, especially the sugar horrors of the microbiota, which are the fungus, the pathogenic E. coli, the gum disease pathogens, and the psychoactive microbes that inhabit particularly cats' mouths and humans' mouths.
And that's for a couple of days?
Couple of days. It's just transient.
Yeah, and it's fine. So early on, somebody had asked if you have an animal, because we see this in a lot of raw-fed dogs and cats where they don't really drink a lot of water.
I know.
So
that's a problem.
What's the other option? Is there another option? I told you I spray in my dog's mouth, both because I want to look in there, and I just like to spray it in there.
Yep. I had no idea how much raw-fed animals didn't drink because my dog drinks just a lot of water, but he's young and we walk a lot. And he chews on all sorts of stuff, and so it makes him more thirsty because the kinds of toys I buy for him are the fuzzy ones that I can throw in the washing machine. But they tend to aggregate that saliva and it causes him to have to drink more, but it also acts like a little brush, so it just brushes. And I care more. I don't care about the plaque retarder. I care up what she doesn't have much, because if you starve the microbes from eating sugars, they're not going to make a lot of they're not going to have a lot of buildup. But it's more about the gingival stimulation, so gum tissue stimulation, getting that blood circulating, because it removes all those toxins. And that's the biggest problem for small dogs and cats and older dogs, is they don't chew enough. They don't get that stimulation and blood flow to remove all the toxins that those microbes are making. And it's really important in the morning after the animals wake up to get them chewing quickly, get them drinking. I know raw feds don't drink a lot, but get them drinking water. They really need to flush out those toxins that the microbes have just been spewing all night long. Not to be depressing, I'm just being practical. Rinse out the water bowl and the food dish almost every day, because it collects that biofilm on it, with soap and water. I usually have two, where I throw one in the dishwasher and I use the other, and then I just rotate them. It's chew toys need to, like bully sticks. My dog gets 2 to 3 bully sticks a week, because again, you stimulate that chewing and you stimulate the blood flow to the gum tissue. For cats, we're working on toys for grooming, because they love to groom and they'll move their paws against their mouths. So we're hoping we can get some more of the powder and nutrients for the microbes into their mouth.
Toys are ready.
Yeah, and then we're looking at fast dissolving lozenges. You just slip right into their cheek and it'll dissolve over time. But that's still a prototype. It's not out yet. But the cats, it's like we're coming out with that next month, and you can put it in their water if they drink water. If they don't drink water, you can put it on your hand. And a lot of our test cats will just lick it right out of the hand. Get it on their tongue. That's the key thing, because those hairs on the tongue actually are what secrete or hold a lot of the saliva. And that's a better way to get it dissolved into the mouth.
So, but is it okay to, because I've been doing that. I've seen good results, but I do put it in a spray bottle and then I
Yeah,
just spray. It's okay to do that. But you
totally okay.
said that you need to put it in the refrigerator and you said for 48 hours, right? It's only
Max 48 hours. Yeah, because there's no preservative in this. So it's just nutrients for microbes. So whatever container you put it in, whatever the microbiome of that container, you're
yeah.
going to grow the
The,
because it tends to foster the growth of beneficial, which is good.
right.
You're basically going to, but you don't want to overgrow that because, you should regulate that. You don't want too much of a good thing is not a good thing.
So I'm just going to help people as if you're getting this, if you put it in the water, it turns yellow. Why does it do that?
Yeah. The vitamin. So, so this is the product I made for my grandma. It's in a lozenge. And it turned out that, she was in her 80s and couldn't brush her teeth. So she turned out to be the great pre-dog version because no one brushes their dog's teeth. And so what we built for dogs was a more potent version. It's just this scoop with the active ingredients, no flavor like what
The
I
people.
built for grandma. But it's got a vitamin B6 in there that good bacteria need to start breaking down amino acids. And any animal like dog or cat need to have a protein-based diet, and amino acids are the building blocks of protein. And so sorry, I'm using this because I was on a flight recently. So, but
Perfect.
but it is a slightly yellow color. I don't know if you can see
Yeah.
that. Yeah, and it's just.
Well, you just
Drink it?
answered one of Lisa's questions. She says, "Can we spray it in our mouth too?"
Yes, it's human grade. And it's highly pure, which is why it's a little bit more expensive because there's no fillers. It's ready to act the minute it touches that animal's or human's mouth. And we're coming out, this exact product has actually been in Alzheimer's patients' mouths, and we're coming out with a flavored version, water additive for older adults that need help as well and don't get their teeth brushed on a regular basis because we know it works clinically.
Yeah, I've been spraying it on dogs after I groom them. I spray like their bellies and their feet because they click their feet all the time, which is something else we talked about the other day, which I thought was kind of interesting about the whole. You had mentioned about people getting really upset that their dog's feet smell like Fritos and they want to kill everything. And we kind of talked about the importance of having the balance, right?
But that's the good yeast that needs to inhabit dogs' their pads. So it lives in the crevices of the pads in their feet, and they secrete a waste product that smells like Frito chips.
Yeah, everybody says it, so it must be true.
No, but that's their normal flora. So if you try and get rid of that, you're actually might be hurting your dog. We don't know because no one's really done the Frito challenge study, right? Like they should. But I'm just warning you that in every single clinical evaluation I've read or in any microbiome study with relation to dogs, that is a normal phenomenon. They even know the microbe behind it. So it's a thing. And I love it. I wake up in the morning and smell my dog's feet because it's the most potent.
This is why I love it so much. Because who doesn't wake up in the morning and smell their dog's feet?
I mean, it smells up my bedroom because he's one of those that just sticks out of
his big old toes get spread out. How funny!
Toes spread out, sticks right out from under the comforter. Yep.
Oh my god, it's so funny. So, is this available? Can this be shipped to Canada?
Yeah. Yep. teethhealth.com, I think, is our email, and we can figure it out.
Okay. And then, so does it need to be refrigerated?
No. It is a powder. We intentionally put it in a powder format so that it is as stable as possible. So there's no preservatives. The thing is, the vitamin B6, that's why we put it in a brown jar. It needs to be protected from light because of the vitamin. That's it. The one thing I do need to talk about, because we get a lot of investors pushing back and marketing experts and CPG people, is they want us to put a filler in this because we get complaints about they want more to go into their dog's dish. And I'm like, we're not treating your dog. We're treating your dog's oral microbes.
Right.
So a little bit does go a long way. And we personally refuse to add additives just for psychological, because then actually, yes, we can be a lot cheaper in the market, but it won't go as far and it won't be as effective. And yes, it might provide you with psychological benefit, but it's not going to be as good for your dog.
That's what's part of the problem is that we're always trying to, just like you were saying earlier, the vet wants to give you the antibiotic. It's more psychological because nobody wants to just stop and rip the Band-Aid off and go, too bad. No more psychological crap. We're going to do it the right way. And as consumers, we need to drive that.
100%. I'm a scientist.
As consumers, we're driving it the other way. And we need to just start telling our veterinarians and our doctors, you know what? No, I don't.
Part of why we're as sick as we are is because we're eating so much freaking filler in our foods and colors and artificial smells and scents and stuff for palatability. And no one needs that. No one. Right. Dogs don't even notice.
I know. So I'm going to kind of address Lori really quick because it's interesting to me, and you'll be able to maybe answer this. So Lori earlier had said that she was giving her dog this since February, but the breath still smells. And now what we're seeing, and I'm wondering if this could be part of the problem, is that she's been putting it on her counter and just spraying it, leaving it on the counter. Do you think maybe she's creating, because it's supposed to be in the refrigerator and it's only for 48 hours? So
max. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe that could be part of the problem.
And spraying you're going to miss if you want to be the most effective with spray, it's hard because spray doesn't give you as full of a dose as I would like.
Okay.
Because you're just like, but you're not getting the tongue, which is the biggest reservoir in the mouth.
Okay.
And subgingivally, which is why I like the drinking water. So if you had to do anything, I would say do goat's milk at a 1-to-4 dilution in water with teeth.
Okay, to get them to drink.
To get them to drink.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
They don't need the whole goat's milk because that's a lot of lactose sugar, which will, and which can cause problems and does lead to gum disease. So cut that by a fourth. Like a fourth of a cup or an eighth of a cup, whatever they drink, and then bring the rest up in water because they'll still smell what they need to smell in order to dive in to drink that, and then put your whole dose of teeth in that. That'll be a much more effective way of dosing their entire mouth than spraying.
Okay. And then somebody had mentioned earlier about coconut water. Is it okay to put it in coconut water?
The kind of coconut water is be careful of. That's not as regulated, and now it's a mass produced product. So it tends to be a lot of preservatives or like things that facilitate the anti-blight and anti-things that maximize the, just like crop protection in the United States. So it's very regulated now, and there tends to be some chemicals in that are so organic, yes. Diluted, yes, because coconut has a lot of sugars. It's a fruit. Fruits by nature have sugars because they want to attract and protect that nut. Yeah, because the nut's on the inside, the sugars from the pulp feed the nut development, blah, 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 blah. We can go into botany if you want, but there is sugar in it. And there's sugar in goat's milk. So cut that down, dilute that in water, and then put the teeth in it to protect the microbes so they don't eat that sugar, which is what causes the gum disease problems.
Yeah. It's so crazy how everything just starts kind of going, oh my God, I'm down in a rabbit hole. I can't get out.
I told you, don't get me started on sexually transmitted diseases.
Do you think that this could be the answer? Now I can't help it. So is this going to be the answer to sexually transmitted diseases, do you think?
Well, in women's health, we are already working on bacterial vaginosis, and we have quite a bit of data on yeast infections, and our dogs, female dogs that are older and older human Alzheimer's patients gave us that lead that if you improve the oral health, you're going to get better vaginal health and uterine health.
It's very interesting. I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but I'm going to do it. Back when I was a vet tech, we were taught to use Monistat in the dog's ear if they had a yeast infection.
Yeah. I mean, it is an antifungal. Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah.
It worked. And you would
Yeah.
just go get Monistat and you would use it. So it's very interesting. I mean, it's very much kind of the same environment.
I
Right?
mean, it is a little bread oven in their ears. My dog has floppy ears, so he gets his ears cleaned probably once every 2 weeks.
Yeah. It's interesting because I'm a big I always tell people to quit because they are constantly putting like these alcohol-based cleaners down their dog's ears. Well,
No.
vets sell it to them, and so
No, I know.
stop killing everything in that ear canal, please. I like to use. I tell people if you're going to do it, if you really feel it's necessary to get in there and clean your dog's ears. I like to just use like coconut oil and water, like just wipe it out. Coconut oil does amazing at cleaning. What about bone broth? I have somebody
I love bone broth, dilute it, and
fine.
change the source of that bone broth. Just like change the source. Again, change the source from like Polynesia, Indonesia, India, Europe, Canada, US, rotate. I know it's more difficult, but Amazon has done an amazing job unifying because you're going to get diversity that way, and it's going to be a better outcome.
Yeah, I rotate a lot. I have the pet store, so I have a lot of different categories I can get from. So I can get bone broth from Green Juju, which I know is getting it from a different source, and I can get it from Bones and Co. And so I do that a lot. I just kind of mix it up a little bit so that my animals are I'm trying to keep them as diverse as I can.
Yeah.
Because it just makes sense. I've run a lot of animal biome tests, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And it's so interesting when you get those tests back and you're like, oh my God, my dog's gut is not diverse at all. He just has 0 of everything. Right?
I know.
Yeah.
And that and diversify. And I mean, can I just show you guys something really quickly? Look at this cutie. Kishi.
Yeah, wait till you guys see this guy. Oh, good. And he'll she was showing me his mouth.
Oh, you want to check it?
Well, if he'll let you, but look at how he sleeps. 4 years old, guys.
No tartar, no plaque buildup.
Look at those gums. Look how pink they are.
Yeah.
Love it. I love it. Yeah, he's
anyways.
4 years old. No.
But he has been on teeth, except when he goes on boarding.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and I double up when he comes back just to get him back, get his microbes back. Because dogs need to have a certain amount of Peptostreptococcus, and they need to have a certain amount of Fredericksili. I can't even say it right now because it's late in my day. It's like 8:30. Fredericksini. Sorry. And they just have to have a certain amount of that stuff, which correlates with good outcomes, dental and lower GI. So
I know I've kept you. It's like almost 6:30.
No, I'm totally fine chatting some more. I'm just saying I can't think of the micro names right now.
I cannot do the names. I remember when I first learned how to say lactobacillus, I was so excited. I was like, I said it. I said it.
Yeah.
Because the problem for me is that I don't work with people who are pronouncing it. I'm just reading it. So I read constantly, and I'm like, I think that's how you say it. And then I go to say it, and some smart person goes, what are you saying? Damn it. I wasn't close at all. They're like, no, you weren't close at all. So I try not to pronounce things too much because I mess it up. I'm lucky I pronounced Dr. Stein correctly because I'm bad at pronouncing names. But so when we look at teeth and it's the little white powder that we're putting in there, I don't know how what exactly is it? Is it a certain bacteria? We know it's not lactobacillus. So what exactly is it?
It is a soluble fiber. So most of it's a soluble fiber from cellulose that a soil bacteria makes. It's technically a postbiotic.
Okay. I'm so loving this postbiotic stuff. I'm learning so much about it. I love it.
And the soil bacteria is using it to compete against sugar-loving organisms in the soil. And we've repurposed it for human and dog and cat and horse, because we're finding that needs it too. Because horses are being fed too much stuff these days that's not,
Do
grass
horses? I don't know
and hay.
anything about horses. Do horses get commercial diets too?
Oh yeah, they, especially the performance horses, they get shoved all sorts of stuff. It's really sad.
Mm,
I don't want to go into that politics because I'm
no,
not.
I mean,
I'm
I don't
not.
know. It's a dumb question on my part. Of course they
No.
are. If someone can
Yeah.
make money off of them, they're going to.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the age of 5, they're wrecked. Their oral is so, and they get abscesses, so it's even worse because once it goes into the gingiva, it can go into the bloodstream and cause joint issues, organ issues, blah blah blah. But you have the soluble fiber. What that does is actually, like I say, it makes microbes, yeasts, like Candida or Aspergillus. It makes E. coli. It makes the primary fermenters that inhabit all of our mouths, dogs, cats, and humans, think it's sugar, and they glom onto it, and they don't know how to release it. So then they're sugar starved, and they're freaking out, right? And then, so they're not going to feed the gum disease pathogens because they're stuck, so they can't eat sugar. And then that vitamin B6, and then there's an amino acid, which is the starter for protein degradation pathways in bacteria. We're actually asking the lactobacillus, the other beneficial microbes, like the Fredericksinias of the world in dogs and other microbes, to really start to compete against those disease-associated pro-inflammatory microbes that love their sugar. And so they're actually starting to like creep up enough so that they can naturally overtake the harmful. Because again, they're battling for turf, right? Because it's a turf war.
Right.
And the way I describe it to human dentists is that, there's always going to be biofilm. You don't want your biofilm on your teeth to be a skyscraper, right? Like a 35 floor building inhabited by really raucous crowd of inhabitants that don't care about the building, don't care about the neighborhood, and they're just going to be noisy and cause problems. You want that plaque or that biofilm to be like 1 or 2 stories, inhabited by a fun-loving family that like mows their lawn on a regular basis, paints the fence on a regular basis, takes care of their ecosystem, and protects their environment in that neighborhood. That's what we're trying to do, but we're doing it through nutrient pressure.
Oh my gosh. That is the best part about it, is that creating a different environment that the others are they're stronger in, right?
Yeah.
They're stronger together, and they can. Yeah, I love it. I love the way you explain stuff. It helps. It can get really deep, like what the heck, and all these names.
Oh yeah.
And stuff,
I'm not going to talk about all that stuff. I'm not going to talk about the enzymes that the microbes make. I'm not going to talk about the extracellular vesicles that porphyromonas secretes, but just know all sorts of stuff's happening that scientists are barely understanding a tenth of it, but they just know outcomes, right? And so we're understanding, okay, if you have too many of these guys and this dog or this cat's eating too much of this kind of a diet and not diversifying enough, it's going to overtake, and it's going to cause downstream problems. Yeah. And so we're just trying to like change that.
Yeah, it's exciting to watch. I'm telling you, I'm watching it with my own 2 eyes at work because I have so many dogs that I can work with. So I get to see some stuff. Apple, you are 100% right. God, I'm horrible. So I did a talk a while back, and every once in a while on these, I give them like little trivial questions, and if they get it right, I will send out something. And Teef was one of my giveaways because we were talking about Teef and Apple. You are 100% right. I absolutely forgot. I can't even believe it. I mean, I can believe it because I get so crazy, and then when I shut this computer off, I go to bed, and then I went to work the next day and forgot to send it. I promise you, I will get it out to you tomorrow. So she won a little thing of Teef.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I like to do little things like that. And that particular episode, we were talking about little Albert, which is the dog that I told you I took in as a foster, and he had so much bone disease and dementia, and he ended up passing away. Actually, it was really
Oh.
quite traumatic for me, because it was a decision that I made, and I look back on it and I think, Jesus, I shouldn't. Maybe I should. That's what I don't want anyone to ever have to do, is be. You should never have to make the decision between having all those teeth pulled or leaving your dog in suffering pain. Like, those are awful, and if we can prevent it,
Yeah.
we should, and we
I
can.
mean, the beauty of oral disease is, and gut, for the most part, is it's almost 100% preventable. I mean, they have to really inherit a really crappy
Yeah.
microbiome, and you're fighting their whole life, and they usually have dental problems in their months old. They're not a year old, they're months old, and it was something they inherited.
Yeah.
And you battle it really hard. And there's ways to do that. You got to hit the microbiome in multiple ways through varied diet every single day. And teeth is another thing to hit. And then lifestyle, get them exercising, get them happy, have them play in the dirt. I mean, that diversity in the dirt is really important, and have them play in dirt that's different, not dog park dirt. Dog park dirt, they're ingesting a bunch of other dogs that are probably chow fed, fecal microbiota all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I can see it when I take my dogs out on hikes. My husband thinks I'm weird, but it's true. I will take pictures of poop, and because I can tell the difference between the raw fed dogs and the kibble fed dogs, and the coyote poop, right? And so I look at them, and sometimes I'll put it on Facebook and I'll be like, what do you see here? Because there is a very big difference between those.
It should not be super broken down.
Yeah. But you think if your dog is out walking in that area where there's a bunch of, like you're saying, at the dog parks, and those are unhealthy biomes, and they're pooping all over the grass, and now your dog is picking up that, even if he's not stepping in their poop or eating their poop, it's still those
breathing it, playing it, it's on the
right?
paws.
Yeah, exactly. So
I mean, I mean, humans, like, think about an airplane. I don't use the restroom in airplanes.
Yeah. Oh, how do you? I mean, I wish I didn't have to, but there's times where I'm like,
I actually will dehydrate myself before I walk into a plane, just because I don't want to do it.
Yeah. But
I told you, though, I am a freak. Yeah.
Okay, but the airplane bathroom is I mean, if somebody went in there with a swab, come on, you can't. Especially, and not to get too much information, but I mean, when you're trying to, and then there's turbulence, come on. Stuff's going all over the place. It's so gross.
There's so much air slice stuff going on.
Yeah.
Yep. That's why I will never even sit next to a bathroom.
So somebody asked, and this is a good question. So she has 2 small dogs. This is from Pam. Each have 1 water bowl. Do they each need 1 scoop a day? Because I put 1 scoop in the water. I have 2 small dogs.
What you can do, just because, we're all, no one's like a billionaire these days.
Right.
And so, I mean, this is human grade. This is highly pure. So it's not going to be the cheapest. And so, to be the most cost effective for us all, because Lord knows I'm on a budget too, this can get spread across, a single dose can get spread across 2 different water bowls, or put in a pitcher from Multi-Dog Home, and just, fill up that pitcher that morning with the 1 scoop, put it in the fridge, fill it throughout the day if you need to. It's all about being as cost conscious as possible, but yet trying to get as much in their mouths every day.
Yeah. And it's important to the diet. Like, I just don't want people to think, oh, okay, well, I can just feed him whatever, and then I'll just give him this. It's always the analogy. And I tried this, and we talked about this. I tried so hard years ago to eat junk food and work out, and it just doesn't work.
And the amount, honestly, of carbohydrate filler in
everything,
your big brands.
Yeah. Everything.
It makes it so much harder for the teeth to work, because the way it works is it plugs up the sugar import system of all the microbes that can eat sugar, right? At that one time that dog drinks. And then the way that microbes work, because this is not killing anything, the microbes are starved, so they upregulate their ability to eat sugars. by expressing or the genes that give rise to more sugar eating transport systems, right? And enzymes and stuff like that. And so that's why we wanted to put it in water, thinking that dogs drink throughout the day. The problem with raw is they don't drink a lot. And so we're struggling. I'm honest, we're struggling with how we dose dogs more frequently throughout the day who are raw fed. Even if you sprinkle a part of that in the palm of the hand and have the dog lick it. My dog licks it, my cat licks it. Just have them lick it out of your hand if you can throughout the day frequently. Spray it. We're coming out with treats. We're coming out with this stuff, but we're startups. We don't have much money to build additional products. We're coming out with a cat product, which has been 3 years in the making and research and blah, 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 but which has taken forever. But we wanted to make sure it was built the right way.
Could the cats have this though?
Yeah, absolutely. They can actually, the cat product we found, the dog product was the best for the cats, but on top of it, we had to add an additional component, which is the cell wall of algae, chlorella in this case, because that acts like a molecular sponge to bind a lot of the toxins and neuroinflammatory toxins that the fungus in their mouths are secreting. Long story short, because we're finding that a lot of dental problems, especially stomatitis in cats, which is the highly proliferative gingival overgrowth, is actually induced by certain microbes of the fungal type. And so by sopping up all what they're secreting will help save additional gingiva from like having to go through that hyperproliferative process, and bind it permanently. So it just goes through in the bound state and they excrete it in the feces. And then the teeth is there to work on, or the protectin is there to work on the oral microbiome to actually sugar starve those fungus to get rid of them over time.
Just so amazing. I'm just I'm so thankful that you grew up and went to school and became a microbiologist and created this. Because it's time. It's time we start addressing the health issues of our animals. And so I'm so excited about this company. It's so hard because people come out. I just had a client of mine, she was sending me nonstop treats that what she wants for her dog is a little something more just vegetarian, just as treats. Just she wants to give the dog he's got some liver enzyme issues, and so it's a long story, but what she's looking for is just more of like a green treat. And so she's just sending me and she's just sending me from Amazon every natural treat you can imagine. I mean, boom, 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 boom. And I'm looking at the ingredients for her, and I cannot tell you how much sugar and crap is in these products.
Like,
and I taught so discouraged. And like, that's what I love about your product. It's just
like sweet potato. We're taught, sweet potato. No. For dental, that's no. If it's sweet potato, make sure it's dehydrated so it passes right through the gut and never gets digested. But the microbes like fiber. And they'll latch on to it, but it never gets digested and the sugars never get broken down, so it never gets into the body.
So what about, I mean, just like the whole veterinarian rice, right?
Oh, that's awful. It's the worst thing your dog can have for dental.
Your dog has diarrhea, give him chicken and rice. And so now that became the best diet ever to give dogs. And so
since when do you know a dog ancestral dog that had rice?
It's awful. It's awful. I have a dog right now I take care of. I love him so much, and he's just eating so much rice, and he's sick, and it's hard. It's hard to
rice causes inflammation in the human species. It causes inflammation in the animal species too. I mean, we shouldn't. It's all about diversification. I can't even tell you for gut health. I mean, I can't even, it like doesn't matter if your dog, I mean, cats, yes, need a much higher content of primary proteins, right?
Right.
And so we need to honor that. But dogs will eat gut content. They will eat, and we just need to honor that too. And why do they need that? Well, they need the microbiome in the gut and all that. And no rabbit eats sweet potato. No, that they catch. No chicken eats sweet potato. You know what I mean?
Right.
So think about those kinds of things.
Do you just one more question, and then I'm going to let you go. But how much do you think? I mean, I guess you kind of sort of already answered this, but genetically, how much do you think this is a genetic problem?
Mm.
I guess it's kind of, I know how would you answer that?
Oh, breed specifically, yeah, like Cocker Spaniels. Tin's the reason why I transitioned the approach from my grandmother into a dog. Yeah, Cockers have big dental issues. Beagles do, which is why Beagles are if you have VOHC on you, which we don't, because we don't want to do animal studies on Beagles in a lab. There are a model system for dental for a reason, right?
Yeah.
They also get dementia, which is
Do you
why
think that
they're
could
dementia
be
model.
just genetically? I mean, just because
Yeah,
the biome? Like,
some. I
which
mean,
one
Chihuahuas.
came first, right?
Yeah, that's exactly the right question to ask. Which one came first?
Yeah, which one came first? Is
And no
it?
one knows.
Yeah, ugh, it's
Because we
awful.
can do nude mouse experiments where they don't have any microbes, right?
Right.
And then we introduce, but those are labs and chicken and egg, right? And so all I know is that we're all born with a program, a microbial program, a genetic program, an epigenetic program. The only thing we can possibly change is our diet, our exercise, our surroundings, our stress levels,
Right.
and the goal is to diversify, 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 and impart that on our household, being our animals and our kids and spouses, you name it, to just try to be a little bit healthier so we don't have to spend so much on putting
Amen.
band-aids on band-aids.
Yeah. No, that is the biggest part and people say that a lot, you spend a little bit up front and it'll save you so much on the back end, right? You're
Yeah,
spending so much money. I'm going to just really quickly, I'm going to kind of
sure.
address this last question, this little question right here. So Apple says, some commercial raw have rice in their formulations. I think that isn't good. What about the raw formulations that have quinoa? Also not good. Apple, I just want to let you know, this is a big problem for me, is the word raw has lost its way. So 20, 30 years ago, when the raw diet first came out, what raw diet meant specifically was organ meat, bone, uh, muscle meat, and blood. And that was what a raw diet meant. It's lost its way now. And people think that a whole fresh food diet, like if we take in some of the commercial foods that we see, like the subscription foods, they have chicken, rice, potato, sweet potato, quinoa. Those to me are not actually the raw diet. So I try not to use that word anymore. I
Yeah.
try to use species appropriate diet because a species appropriate diet, whether it's raw or if you even lightly cooked a species appropriate diet, would never have rice, potato, because no species eats that.
No.
Canines don't eat that.
Mm-mm.
So be really careful when you guys are in your minds thinking about what a raw diet means. That is the problem. That's why you're seeing these foods with rice and potato. They're
Mm-hmm.
not technically raw diets. I don't know what you have experienced.
From the microbiota side of the spectrum and the immune inflammatory side of the spectrum, because I can speak for both sides
Yeah.
because of all my experience. In dogs that eat grass, go for it. Because they're probably ancestrally used to eating rabbits or things that ate grass or grazing animals that they preyed
Yeah.
on, right? And so they need that fermented, even though they're not going to ferment it themselves, they're still drawn to that. I would say same with cats, interestingly. I think that quinoa and things like that, if you take out the carbohydrate because they're fermented grains, that's better. If you have to feed grains, I hate grains for animals because grains equals inflammation.
Yep.
And grains equals pathogens. But if you have to do it because we're all on a budget, I get that. At least go through the fermentation process, right? Which what we know in human health, we've totally screwed ourselves because we're not eating naturally fermented breads anymore. We went through the Wonder Bread phase in the 1950s, and that really screwed up human health. Inflammation went,
Yep.
and our nutrition went, and we're doing that now with our pets, and it's just awful. And so the whole purpose of fermentation is the microbes start to digest that sugar before you even ingest it, right? So you're eating that cyclical process and have that happen outside of your body, and then you ingest it. And that's what the grazing animals, that the dogs and the wolves and things like, and the cats, that's what they're used to eating historically. And we are still ancestral, although our microbiomes have changed much faster than our genetics have. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I actually think the micro are driving a lot of our problems more so than our genetic shifts, because our genetics are so slow compared to the microbes.
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes total sense to me. I hope it does to everybody else that's listening. Cause I think that our microbiome is so messed up on every level, everywhere.
Yeah.
It's
and there's a comment about pesticides. Totally. The worst thing that man ever made.
Oh yeah. Without pesticide grass. Yeah, for sure.
Cancer.
My dogs love grass. They don't get any form of carb, sugar, just really enjoy. Oh, you're welcome. She says she's really enjoying the conversation. I was waiting for a question there. So I was like, oh, I love that. I love having conversations. When I try to get somebody to come on the show, I always tell them, it used to be way back when I first started this, people would ask me for a list of questions. So they would pre-know what the questions were, but it really put that conversation on hold, because I was constantly going, okay, we're on question number 3 and then 3. And then I would try to look at these. And so when I was talking to Dr. Stein before this, she was saying, yeah, let's just free do it. I love it. Like, let's just have a conversation, because that's all it really is. And that's how things change. And we can include people into the conversation. So I'm glad, Sherry, that you're enjoying it, because I hope I'm still alive to see when this shift happens with our animals, because I've watched the first shift, because animals were not this sick back when I was working at the vet hospitals. And so I've unfortunately been able to see the horrible shift happen. Yeah. And I hope that I'm still alive to see it shift back. And I'm just so thankful to have your product out there, because I think that it's going to be a game changer if we can just get enough people to start. And that's what's so great, Emily, about you, is that it's not like, I don't know if you guys get this from her, but she's not here going, okay, bye Teef, here's this great. No. Like, she's very yeah, like, it's about educating and understanding about the microbiome, and that's what is so great about it, is that I think you're going to be just a driving force in an industry that needs it really bad. So
what, we all need it, and I'm still learning, and it's only because we've been doing experiments for the past 13 years in the oral microbiota of humans and dogs and cats and horses that we're seeing this stuff. But it's not about exactly who's living there. It's about really what they're doing and how many of them are doing really bad stuff. And it's like an unruly kindergarten class, when you want to think about it. And it's like, how do you manage, instead of 26 kids, we're talking, let's call it 2.6 billion kids that are causing some problems, right? And so we're doing the best we can with our single product, and we're coming out with new things as we learn them, as we learn how we can help. But we're still at the forefront of, heck, we're way ahead of where everyone else in the field is. And so we have an uphill battle with just teaching people what we've learned over 13 years, because they're like, what? But then I think about it, I'm like, oh yeah, it took 120 years to teach medicine to adopt vitamin C to treat scurvy. So this is going to take some time.
Yeah. What a great analogy, because that's the whole, when you say it's like an unruly kindergarten class, right? And I hope this doesn't come off bad, but yeah, we can't just kill all the kindergartners. We have to find a way, because can imagine what drama what would happen if that's what you did.
Oh, you go through autoimmune, because they tolerated your immune system. You get rid of them, they're no longer manipulating your immune system. You start attacking your own tissue. We know this from the too clean. We're too clean as a society, and so autoimmune.
Yeah. People are always amazed when I tell them this. I feed my dogs in the dirt. I throw their food out in my
Fantastic.
backyard and they sniff around and they eat. I mean, the only thing is it's always my dirt. I need to get more diversified with the dirt that they're eating, but they eat in the dirt. I throw their food out there
Yeah.
on the floor all the time. I don't know.
Yeah. I tell human people with GI issues, eat some dirt. Or grow your own vegetables and don't wash them really well. But just don't use any pesticides or herbicides in your, anything in your grass or anything to keep away just eat your dirt.
To be honest with you, I am kind of surprised. And here I'm giving somebody an idea. Here's a business idea for you because I'm really good at it. Why am I not selling dirt at the spa for dogs? Like, why do I not have like a cup of pure soil, yummy, that I can just sprinkle on, like just dirt? There you go. See?
If you can guarantee cleanliness from a chemical perspective, I'd be all over. In diversity,
right?
Go after it, because gosh, you could inoculate so many farmers. I mean, there's a huge crisis with soil dysbiosis across the United States because we've monocultured and pesticided, like it's just insane. And our soils are sick, which means our crops are sick.
I need to create my own soil. I actually really wanted to create a litter box that is just dirt, like for litter, for cat litter. Like I just want a cat litter that's just dirt. But here's the problem: they pee in it, and then they track it all over your house, and it becomes mud. So that was one of my ideas. I was like, how come I can't just give my cats dirt to pee in? Well, then I started to go, I'm like, oh my God, my house would be so full of mud. But I don't know why someone can't create something like that. It would be so great because you think about how much cats are in their litter box.
I mean, if you have dogs like I do in the spring, you have mud issues period being tracked in. So you have to, I think we could figure it out.
It needs to be done. Aside from the fact that I live in California and this past 3 months have been nothing but rain. But yeah, I never see mud here because we never have any rain.
Oh, you have a super bloom though.
We do. I've already been out there. I'm so excited about it. It's a real thing. Like I drove out kind of close to my house and I was like, oh my God, there's flowers on we don't see that stuff. So it was it's a pretty amazing super bloom. Yeah, for sure.
Well, we're expected to have snow on Sunday. So
really,
like, come on guys. This is like mid-April.
Oh yeah. Well, it was 80 degrees here yesterday.
It's 84 today.
Oh, really?
Which is why I have a little bit of a sunburn.
All right, guys. If there's nothing else, Buy Dirt just won Best Country Song.
Oh, no way. That's awesome.
Buy Dirt where? Lisa, you got me all excited.
I'm going to check that song out.
All right, guys, I am going to go ahead and let everybody go. Thank you all for being here. Great questions, great engagement. I love when I see people answering each other's questions and helping. We have such an amazing community that come on here. We come on every Wednesday at 5:00 Pacific Standard Time. And we just talk about different subjects. So it's just so great to see some of the names still, people coming on and learning. But what I love the most is all of these people will now teach, right? 20 people or 50 people or 100 people. And that's really the community that we're trying to build is to spread all of this information and to talk about I don't want to say get away from the gut microbiome because it's connected, but we need to realize the importance of the mouth gut microbiome and the skin's microbiome and all of these things because they are connected. So
yeah. And it seeds the gut. The mouth seeds the gut. We know this. Every time you swallow hundreds of millions of microbes.
Hundreds of millions. I'm sitting here going, okay, don't swallow.
No, you can swallow. And every time you kiss, closed mouth, I'm not going to go STD. I'm just going to stop right there.
Well, we'll have to do that on another topic. I don't know. When we start talking about dogs and STDs, actually, they can get them.
I know they can.
They do get them. But Emily, thank you so much for being here and educating us and helping people understand that it's not just about a clean looking mouth, because that's what happens is people start going, oh, I want my dog's teeth to be clean and I don't want to smell his breath. I mean, I hope you guys really paid close attention when she's talking about dementia and cancers and
kidney disease, liver disease, cardiovascular. It's all linked to the mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about your dog's breath smelling great. We're talking about disease. And who better to have brought on than to have you on here and explain that to us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Carrie, for doing this. This is an awesome ecosystem and subject matter. So
I
cool.
love it. Any last minute things you want to throw out?
There's so much. The best thing I can just say is diversify. Chew toys are awesome. Wash them and the water bowls really well. And take a look at those gums every month. If you see a change, stay proactive. Prevention is the only real way to tackle this disease. Once it starts, it's like a runaway freight train.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Behind the scenes, guys, is Lori. She's the one typing everything out. So I always got to do a shout out to her because she gets this all set up. She does all this. Like I just show up and I run here from work and I show up and I sit in this chair and Lori's got it all put together. So Lori, thank you so much. I know you're hopefully still listening. She might have went to bed. I don't know, but you're pretty good. So, all right, guys, I will see you all next Wednesday. And we'll talk soon. All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, take care.
Bye.